Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Smith and this is my presentation over the application of security principles. Jumping right in, we have our first security failure, which is using the same password multiple times. This may be convenient and incredibly convenient, but it can also be incredibly risky. If a user reuses the same password for every account, and that one password on one account is hacked and cracked, a hacker can use that password to attempt to sign into many other accounts through that one device. Reusing passwords is a major threat to cybersecurity. It may not seem very complicated, but it's the simplicity that makes it very dangerous. Our second security failure is not encrypting files. This can lead to potential data breach. Not encrypting files, when working remotely, especially when data is naturally in transit to send from one user to another user, that information is at risk. Data in transit is at risk for being hacked. It's targeted by hackers. If that information, even if it's sent over an email that you think is secure, that information is still vulnerable to being hacked. So encrypting those files is incredibly crucial. Encrypting the files makes it harder for hackers to get a hold of. Our third security failure is not updating software. This is a very simple one, but one that is overlooked often. It can also result in a data breach or a malware infection. Not updating software is also refusing to install patches, which are intended to resolve vulnerabilities that exist within a system. Patches are meant to resolve vulnerabilities that pose a risk or a threat to an organization and the infrastructure. It also means a user will not have the latest information or latest features. These features make the system run faster. These features increase security. Not updating software means you won't have the most up-to-date features. It also leaves the system vulnerable to system failures or crashes. On top of crashing and running slow, the system or the organization could be at risk of losing information. This is incredibly dangerous, and this feeds into the next point if we do not back up, or an organization or employees do not back up data. Refusing to back up data or forgetting to back up data is incredibly risky for an organization that relies on sensitive information or relies on information for its customers or clients. In the event of an accident, any accident, we could have a freak storm and things could crash and power could be wiped out. Or your cat could walk across and spill the coffee on your laptop. All of that are freak accidents, but they could result in a loss of information if a computer crashes. This puts an organization at risk of losing that information if it's not stored or backed up somewhere. Backing up data provides a copy of that data in a safe location in the instance or in the event that an accident happens, that data is lost or deleted, it can be restored and recovered. The next security failure is clicking on unknown links. This one can be avoided with proper training, but it is purely from human error. Phishing attacks are on the rise. With the increase in remote work, phishing attacks are getting more sophisticated. These emails seem so more real. But on top of being real, they pose a legit risk or danger to an organization. In human error, an employee who may not have the training or may be ignorant enough to tap onto that link can open the door for a hacker to walk right in to very sensitive information for that organization. There should be required cybersecurity basics training that should be implemented to cover phishing attacks of all sorts. Next, we have not using multi-factor authentication. This is an important one. Multi-factor authentication provides extra layers of security. You can have a very strong password, a password you think no one will ever guess. The way that hackers are cracking passwords these days becomes more and more sophisticated. And if a password, again, is cracked, that is only one layer a hacker has to go through in order to access so much information on a device. Multi-factor authentication, like I said, provides an extra layer of security that if in the instance, or in the event, that a hacker does crack a password, they have to provide other forms of verification in order to access that information. For instance, it could be a fingerprint. It could be from personal experience with my job, they send you a 60-second code. You have 60 seconds to type in that code, and it evaluates and it reprocesses a new code every 60 seconds. Then that's just one form of multi-factor authentication that provides that extra layer of security. Next, we have using public Wi-Fi. Using public Wi-Fi is a convenient thing, a very convenient thing. It's very nice to get out of the house when you work remote, go to a coffee shop, sit on the public Wi-Fi, and you don't think much of it. But there could be malicious users on that Wi-Fi, on that network, that can create man-in-the-middle attacks without you being aware. And then they can see everything you type into your screen, and so much information without you even knowing is now in the wrong hands. Using public Wi-Fi, you face the threat of malware attacks, viruses, and worms. If you're going to work in a public Wi-Fi environment, there needs to be many other security measures met in order to protect data when on a public network or on public Wi-Fi. Next, we have using personal devices for work. This is a security failure because it is oftentimes, and from personal experience, my organization that I used to work for allowed me to have my personal email on my phone. Doesn't seem like a lot, but there was more sensitive information than needed to be in an email on my work email, now on a personal device. Our personal devices are not nearly as secure as a company-provided device, which means that sensitive information that's saved to our device or stored on a personal device is more at risk to being hacked. And if that personal device is hacked, all that data can be leaked and can be very costly for an organization. There needs to be more detailed remote work policies in place when an organization allows employees to work remotely. Jumping into the CIA triad. The first part of the CIA triad is confidentiality. Confidentiality refers to the rules that limit access to information. And of all the security failures I researched, these are the 4 that I was able to relate to confidentiality, not necessarily in a good way, but in the case of this presentation, they are more negative, but they can be fixed. So using the same password multiple times, using public Wi-Fi, clicking on unknown links, and using personal devices at work are all ways hackers can get into a personal device with ease, cracking a password, creating a man-in-the-middle attack, phishing attacks, or simply, again, cracking a password and accessing a personal device. All breaches confidentiality and leaves sensitive information in the hands of the wrong person. Then we have integrity, which refers to accuracy and trustworthiness of information. Not encrypting files and not using multi-factor authentication are the 2 security failures I associated with this principle here, because both not encrypting files and not using multi-factor authentication leaves sensitive information at risk of being hacked, and if it is hacked, it can be manipulated. And if it's manipulated, it's no longer accurate, it's no longer trustworthy. So encrypting files and utilizing multi-factor authentication are 2 ways to uphold and to stay within the lines of integrity. And then finally, we have availability, which refers to the ability for a user to access secure information. So once information is secure, it's encrypted, it's protected. Now people need to be able to access it. Not updating software and not backing up data were the 2 security failures associated with the availability. Because if you don't update software, You have the potential of a system crashing, running slow. You can't access that information. Not backing up data. If your system crashes and your information is not stored properly, it can't be recovered. Therefore, it's not secure and it's not able to be accessed. Next, we have the principles that have been violated. We have layering, separation of privilege, and isolation. Layering was violated because reusing the same password and not utilizing multi-factor authentication do not provide extra layers of security. Separation of privilege was violated because not using multi-factor authentication, again, does not provide that extra layer of security. And then finally, isolation. Isolation, the second part of isolation is about isolating files and data. Failure to encrypt these files is a failure to isolate them in a secure environment. Then we have design principles for remote workers that I would recommend. First and foremost, least privilege. I think that should be the number one thing. Limit users to access only what they need. This prevents all other issues. This helps prevent other issues when it comes to unauthorized users accessing information they do not need. The next principle is layering. It implements multiple layers to create a stronger defense against malicious users. Layering is incredibly important because the first layer is bound to be hacked. Hackers are more and more sophisticated every year. Increasing the number of layers that protect sensitive information, it keeps malicious users from getting their hands on the sensitive data that organizations don't want their hands on. And finally, economy of mechanism. This requires the security mechanism to be as simple as possible. This helps reduce the risk of human error. You don't have to worry about employees messing it up, clicking on the wrong things. Human error is inevitable, but keeping things simple reduces that risk. These are my references. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.